And the timing is also like that.
Yeah, that timing is off because
No.
the other batches are Tuesday or Wednesday, like I miss.
You cannot do it, huh?
Yes, I cannot do that.
Okay. Glory থাকক.
So two of the subjects have to clash. I have no choice.
You have no choice. There's another student yesterday who had joined. He also has a problem on Tuesday. You have a problem on Monday.
Yes.
Okay, anyway. So we were discussing up till family. Niki, kali kiman lage course family. Family over? Okay, next. After family, here he go. Remember the sequence?
Order.
Yeah.
Order.
What is the sequence?
Family order, class, line.
Yeah, that line you need to remember, right? Keep pots clean, otherwise family gets sick. So we'll be writing about order today. Okay, chalo, right. Convolvulaceae. Convolvulacee. So a group of families together form order. So, we have given certain examples of families together belonging to the same order, right. This is over. Next likhiba class. Class ki hobo? Group of related. Ki hobo? Families ne orders? Orders. This is over. Polika. So, a group of orders will form a class. Some examples of orders belonging to a specific class, right. In case of plants, we have given two examples of classes, one being dicot and the other being chlorophyceae. Chlorophyceae is something that we will learn when we will be studying about the plant kingdom. Third chapter would be plant kingdom. Plant kingdom or ami etu porhim. Green algae. As far as volvocales and conjugales are concerned, volvocales isn't the scientific name of volvox, hetu nohoy kintu, right. Volvox belongs to this order. Similarly, Spirogyra belongs to this order. Similarly, if you are talking about mango's scientific name Sapindales to nohoy, Mangifera indica hai asile, but it belongs to the order Sapindales. And as it is, I think you all remember yesterday what we have said is that table from the NCERT book, na? You have to remember that. Mango to important boli koisilu. If this is over the last taxonomic or the highest taxonomic hierarchy report, highest category ki asile? Kingdom. So heading kora kingdom. No, for phylum likha nahi no, phylum, ha, phylum oblique division likha. Huh? Doesn't matter in which order you read. You go from the smallest unit of classification to the highest unit of classification. And what do you know about phylum and division? Phylum or division of first line ki porisilu? One is assigned for plants and the other is assigned for animals. Animals or karne kuntu, plants or karne kuntu? Yeah, for animals we have phylum, for plants we have division. দুটা example, এটা phylum chordata, or in case of plants, যেহেতু phylum word use নকৰো, we use the word division. The division is angiospermy. ফাইনালি কিংডম লিখা। Sorry, nothing to explain. I think it's understood. Yeah. Botanical NCERT nalag ek NCERT kon and my notes more enough তাতকে বেছি আৰু বেছি বুকস কিনলে কনফিউজ হৈ যাবা ঠিক আছে স্কুলৰ পৰা কিবা ৰেফাৰেন্স তুমি কোন স্কুলৰ মহৰ্ষি কিবা ৰেফাৰেন্স আছে নেকি স্কুলৰ পৰা এমটিজি এইটো তো এমসিকিউজৰ কাৰণেহে থিওৰি কাৰণেতো একো কাৰণে থিওৰি কাৰণে নালাগে আৰু এইটো কাৰণে ফিংগাৰ টিপছটো ইভেন দিছ ইজ সামথিং দ্যাট উই ডু ইন দ্য ক্লাছ অলসো ৰাইট ফিংগাৰ টিপছ আছে মাষ্টাৰ দ্য এনচিইআৰটি আছে এমসিকিউ as many books you can do right in theory I don't think only NCERT and the notes sufficient right whole ekhin loke so what we have completed is taxonomic hierarchy right so taxonomic hierarchy some of the points that we have discussed yesterday what we said we have talked about certain words like unit of classification rank taxon etc category also we have talked about the difference between a category and a taxon right category or taxon ki difference example di last class ot padhaiso right next is question kene kya hai sequence to upor question ahibo so you have to know the sequence another point that is important the chart that is given in your NCERT book so we have almost completed what we have is the last part of the lesson talks about likasan biological concept of species kingdom So biological concept of species, it is a concept given by a scientist, right? Ernest Mayr. So, teo mote, what is a species? Hey, definition to it has been written properly, right? So what did he say? Then we'll understand. Given by Ernest Mayr. Is it word to? Is it clear? Okay, it gives an idea about speciation. Tarpisot important points ketaman likho gutekhin nalage. So we have something called as biological concept of species. This is nothing but a definition that was, or it is a concept given by a scientist called as Ernest Mayr. We have already studied what a species is. Last class I species পঢ়িছো no? আজি কি পঢ়িছো biological concept of species. মানে how will you define species biologically? Right? This is a proper concept given by only one scientist, that is Ernest Mayr. Species, or as far as the definition of species is concerned, what is a species? Species at a single individual, a group of individuals. Group of individuals. And hey species or at a species or jiman members takibo. Hey members kini bhitor, they should be having certain things common. What are the common things they should be having? Ki common hobo lebo? Yeah, so we are talking about a group. this group would be called as a species. Yat species of ki thakibo pare organisms thakibo lage, and if these organisms has to belong to a single species, then they need to be ki characteristics lagibo similar hobo lagibo. Kenuka dhoroner similar? Morphologically, anatomically, biochemically, cytologically, we have written yesterday, right? Together with that, remember we have written something about reproduction also, right? So ihotor members bilak jedi etu group ot form koribo lage ba etu group ot include hobo lage, all those members should breed amongst themselves. Tahate naturally tahator mazot ki koribo lagibo, mating koribo lagibo ba reproduction koribo lagibo. That was something that we have studied. Ernest Mayr also said the same thing. If you go through the sentences, species or biological concept of species means the same. But what did Ernest Mayr say? He said that if someone has to come and or if someone has to belong to this group called as species, it should be naturally interbreeding, and plus it has to produce fertile offspring. Means what? If suppose we are talking about yate already kita ase sota ase, we have another one here. According to Ernest Mayr, if this one has to be included in this one, tetia hole yar characteristics lagibo. Ki characteristics lagibo? They should be closely related. I mean, this one and this one should be closely related. They should be having genetical makeup to eke hobo lagibo, and plus they should be interbreeding freely, right? Tamane A2 species, A2 member logot ki koribo paribo lagibo, reproduce koribo paribo lagibo. Keneke artificially, naturally, and another point what he has said is, no doubt they have to reproduce, they have to produce ki fertile offsprings also. If such a condition arises, the A2 yar logot reproduce korise, kori pelai jodi tahator offspring to sterile hoy, according to Ernest Mayr, he cannot belong to this species. Is the point clear? Species of include hobo lage. Species ki hoy group. A group to include hobo lagile. A organism to ki characteristic lagibo? Closely related hobo lagibo. Kar logot yar logot. Genetic makeup eke hobo lagibo. Kar logot yar logot. Plus ki koribo lagibo? Interbreed koribo lagibo. Ihot dutai mating koribo lagibo. Plus mating korar pisot juntu offspring produce korile hetu ki hobo lagibo? Fertile. Jedi tahate sterile form kore, then according to Ernest Mayr, jiman bilak similarities e nathakok kyo, this will not be belonging to a single species. So out of all the points that we have written, what is the most important word of biological concept of species is this one. So jedi reproductively isolated, okol tahator mazot he reproduction hobo, tetia he species on include koribo. For example, a cat will mate with a cat. Kino cat or dog e jedi mate kore, that would not be considered as a species, right? Kintu what we have seen certain limitations, right? No doubt the same species e ki kore, mating kore, but we have seen that members of different species also mate. Have you heard something called as mule? Mule kunisane? Mule? A horse and a donkey. Ernest Mayr ki koisile species or members ki niye reproduce koribo paribo ate teha tahatok species buli kobo, kintu we have examples in nature jun bilake niki naturally breeding kori pelayu ki dekha paisu je duta beleg species e mute kori pelai offspring produce korise, right? So in this case ki hobo? Horse into donkey, offspring ki produce koribo? Mule. Horse or ki hol? Horse is also a species, donkey is also a species, but two different species. According to Ernest Mayr, members of the same species only reproduce amongst themselves. Kino ami ki dekha paisu, members of two different species can also reproduce amongst themselves. Duita difference bujisa? Teo ki koisile? Members of the same species only reproduce amongst themselves. Kate kator logote koribo, doge dogor logote koribo, horse horsor logote koribo. Kino nature ami ki ulta bostu kisuman exceptions dekisu nai. So A2 bostur ki thake kisuman exceptions ase. We have exceptions to the biological concept of species, and such are the examples, right? In nature, what we have seen je naturally duta beleg different species e reproduce kori pelai offspring produce kore. One example is mule. One thing is clear in this example, when we are talking about this offspring to kintu sterile hoy. When we talk about mule e akko reproduce koribo nware kintu. Buji paisane? Horse to fertile, donkey to fertile, tahator offspring to ki sterile, right? So এও কি কৈছে যে স্পিচিজে তাহাঁতৰ নিজৰ মাজতে ৰিপ্ৰডিউস কৰিব লাগিব, নিজৰ মাজতে ৰিপ্ৰডিউস কৰি পেলাই তাহাঁতে কি ফৰ্ম কৰিব লাগিব, ফাৰ্টাইল অফস্প্ৰিংস ফৰ্ম কৰিব লাগিব। কিন্তু নেচাৰত আমি কি দেখা আছো যে দুটা বেলেগ স্পিচিজেও মেট কৰে আৰু তাহাঁতে যোনটো অফস্প্ৰিং প্ৰডিউস কৰে সেইটো ষ্টেৰাইলো হয়, right? Now again one thing, another thing that you have to learn from here, যেতিয়া দুটা organisms from দুটা বেলেগ স্পিচিজে মেট কৰে সদায় যে তাহাঁতৰ অফস্প্ৰিংটো ষ্টেৰাইলে হ'ব, not necessary. Sometimes they might be producing fertile offsprings also, কিন্তু that is obviously in a captivated condition. I think you have to remember in the last class কালি আমি কৈ আছিলো ন এটা টাইগাৰ এটা লায়ন আমি কি কৰিব পাৰো ফোর্সফুলি মেট কৰাব পাৰো, obviously naturally মেট নকৰে, কিন্তু if forcefully কৰো তথাপিতো they are the members of two different species, তাহাঁতক যদি মেট কৰো তাহাঁতেওতো অফস্প্ৰিং প্ৰডিউস কৰিব, offspring to into that time it will be a fertile offspring. What I want to say is when two organisms of two different species mate with each other, not necessary সদায় তাহাঁতৰ offspring to sterile হ'ব. We have examples of fertile offsprings, we have examples of sterile offsprings, and that is the exception of this. Ernest Mayer'ৰ মতে কি কৈছিলে, members of the same species should only reproduce among themselves. যদি বেলেগৰ লগত কৰে তাহাঁত স্পিচিজে নহয়, right? কিন্তু we see exceptions. So next আমি লিখিম limitations of biological concept. Concept to বুজিছা ন? Out of all the points that we have written, from entrance point of view, what is the question that is asked as this last word, right? What is the concept of biological species or concept of biological species? And the second point is নিয়ে বলতে চাইলে দুটা বস্তুৱে পঢ়িম। Reproductive isolation মানে কি? বায়োলজিক্যাল কনসেপ্টটো কি হয়, এটা ডেফিনেশন বা এটা কনসেপ্ট, গোটেই কনসেপ্টটো কোনটো ওয়ার্ডৰ আগেইনষ্টত ৰিভলভ কৰিছে, ৰিপ্ৰডাক্টিভ আইসোলেশন। ৰিপ্ৰডাক্টিভ আইসোলেশন মানে কি? সেম ৰাইট? সো ক্যাটে কাৰ লগত কৰিব, ক্যাটৰ লগতে কৰিব, বেলেগৰ লগত কৰিব নেকি? নকৰে, তাৰমানে হি ইজ আইসোলেটেড। ডগস, মাংকিজ সেইবিলাকৰ লগত নকৰে। সো দ্যাট ইজ হোৱাট ইজ কল্ড এজ ৰিপ্ৰডাক্টিভ আইসোলেশন। তাতে কন্টিনিউ কৰিবা। Limitations of biological concept of species. So biological concept of species e ki koise jedi species hobo lage tetiahole members of the same type should reproduce amongst themselves. Kintu in nature what we have seen duta beleg species reproduce amongst themselves, right? And in that case sometimes we might observe fertile hybrids, in certain cases we might see sterile hybrids, right? As far as mule and hinny is concerned, tahat bilak ki hoy sterile hoy, kintu if you are talking about tiger and liger tetiahole obviously tahat fertile hobo, right? And whenever we are talking about this one, etu ki hoy, if you are talking about mule naturally, right, tahate mating kore, but if you are talking about this too, obviously will do it. So almost over. At a point likhim khali iman besi examples monot rakhibo nalage biological concept of species, or no doubt we have written a huge note. What you will be remembering is just the name of the scientist who has given the concept and the word reproductive isolation. That's all. Okay, read the line and choose the correct answer.
Decreases.
It decreases, right? Our common or similar eketai bostu, so we'll write it directly. Decreases. I think it's understood. Maximum similarity ko thakibo, minimum similarity ko thakibo. Maximum similarity species of thakibo, minimum similarity ko thakibo, kingdom of thakibo, because we know this line, right? So when we are talking about maximum similarity, we come across another word that is called as general characters. So question to ketiaba similarity word to nidi pala general characters to dibo pare. What you understand by the word general characters is differences. So difference sobotse besi kot thakibo, kingdom ote thakibo, right? This is point number 1. Yare kiba doubts to nai sake? So ekekhini bostue just different words, right? It's based on that same line, no? Tolor pa upore gole ki hoy similar characters increase kore na decrease kore, that's all, right? But why I have written so many points? So that any type of question does not confuse you, right? Complexity pra ahibo pare word to নহলে classification simple ketia hobo complex ketia hobo hetu khutibo pare ba word similarity to dibo pare. So this brings an end to the chapter. So we'll just discuss certain questions. Let's see. Questions puri likha. Questions likhiba ne we'll just discuss. I think it's better. Huh? The questions are PDF to pathai dim, no? I think that will be better. There's no point of wasting. Duta man tothapi let's see. Don't write it down, huh? Yata question is ekdom simple living word question na hai. Okay, the first question, all the taxonomic categories together constitute the dash. All the taxonomic categories together constitute the dash. Options ki ase? Taxon, kingdom, family, hierarchy. All the taxonomic categories together constitute dash. Options are taxon, family, kingdom, hierarchy. All the taxonomic categories together constitute. Exactly. First bench? Ki hobo? Option nasabai, question to porha. First taxonomic categories mane ki? Those 7 obligate characters that we have talked about. Gutei khini ekeloge ki buli kora? Gutei khini ekeloge kingdom buli ko mani ki? Right? Kingdom, etu juntu koi aso. Ekhini gutei bilak ki hoy taxonomic categories hoy noy question to ki korise gutei bilak ekeloge forms dash gutei bilak ekeloge to kingdom no hoy gutei bilak ekeloge to taxon no hoy gutei bilak ekeloge ki hoy is the point clear? So taxonomical hierarchy is this one, right? So read the question properly, okay? Taxon is what? Unit of classification hawk, but taxon hawk, but category hawk, but rank hawk. Everything means the same. We are talking about step of the hierarchy, but there is a difference between category and taxon. Category is a group. Taxon is the living things belonging to that group, right? So okay, what kali abhi? Actually sabole gole nohoy. Karon taxon aru category difference ami poriso. Eta group thakibo, group to bhitor living organisms ase. Right? Order eta ase, order to bhitor plants ase. Plants bilak living. So plants bilak taxon. Kintu order eta group hai, group to category. Right? Non living to kami ki boli ko? Category boli ko. Living to kami ki boli ko? Taxon boli ko. Right? Kintu in general ami ki poru je everything means the same. It is nothing but a step of taxonomic hierarchy. Right? Okay, the lowest taxonomic category, eto to sobe jane, species, right? Next, the process of naming of living organisms is called the process of naming of নেমিং প্ৰচেছটো কি বুলি কয় nomenclature ইয়াতে মানে কি হৈছে কিছুমান কোৱেশ্চনছ যোনটো পাৰ্ট তোমালোকক অমিট কৰিছে সেইখিনিৰ পৰা আছে Okay, so examples are important. All the examples that are given in the NCERT books, যেনেকে মই অলপ আগতে লিখিলো ন ডিভিশন কেটামান লিখিলো কিংডম কেটামান লিখিলো ক্লাছৰ এক্সাম্পল দিছে এক্সাম্পল ওয়াইজ কোৱেশ্চন আহিছে সো ইয়াতে কোৱেশ্চন আহিছে Solanum includes species so Solanum কি আছিলে genus right আমি এটা পঢ়িছিলো Solanum tuberosum yeah so Solanum tuberosum tinta example পঢ়িছো Solanum right tuberosum পঢ়িছো melangena পঢ়িছো আৰু niger পঢ়িছো ইয়াতে গুটেই গিটা আছে so Solanum includes what it includes nigrum it includes tuberosum it includes melangena also so education it talks about the fact that protective example পঢ়িব লাগিব right next choose the correct statement about scientific names so here I get some options scientific names bully kole we understand no scientific names of what are the points you all remember which one is the most accepted form binomial nomenclature right given by careless linears right binomial nomenclature dibole hole rules lagibo keta rules is 7 so what's the important rule of priority animals hole 1758 plants hole 1753 I think we remember that right Our scientific names are written in which language? Latin. Italics hobo lagibo when it's printed, handwritten hole underline koribo lagibo. Okay, the taxonomic category genus represents dash. Genus ki hoy? Option A, individual organism. Option B, a collection of organisms. Option C, a group of closely related species. Option D, none of these. So genus ki hoy eta organism to no hoy group of organisms to some extent it is but it's not a correct definition so species word to thakiboi lagibo so answer is C. The naming system that is practiced by biologists all over the world was given by the naming system that is practiced by the biologists all over the world was given by careless linears yate binomial nomenclature word to didia nai right so it's careless linears okay the taxonomic category order lies between exactly so yate tumake ki mone rakhibo lagibo question ki hobo aise it lies between class and family right okay fishes amphibians reptiles and birds represent which taxonomic category class order phylum kingdom fish or phylum ase niki fish is not a phylum that phylum ot ki likhisu so moi note to imantor ki disu fishes amphibians reptiles birds represents which taxonomic category phylum jano phylum hobo noy no phylum keneke hobo Sai lo see the example mo directly koi dile tumalke bisari na paba notes eta statement disilo it does not only include mammalia but includes aves reptilia amphibians disune so hebla ki hoy class fish is a class aves is a class mammalia is a class everything belongs to the next higher group right? So hey tenekwa question ahise, fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds represents which taxonomic category? They belong to class. Okay, families are characterized on the basis of family ki hoy? What is a family? Yes, it's nothing else but a group of genus, right? So when family eta categorize koribo ba a group to bonabole hole, what are the characteristics you will study? Family. So protekto etu group hoy. Such a statement is related only with family. Enuka question ketiyao nahe je order is characterized by. Enuka question ketiyao nahe je phylum is characterized by. We have to read only one statement that goes for family. Family is characterized by the reproductive and the vegetative characters. So our family likha ase on the basis of both reproductive and vegetative characters, right? So okol family re eta line ase, baki bilakor nai. In Mangifera indica lin, eto to pariba, which is the specific epithet? In Mangifera indica lin, which is the specific epithet? Obviously indica. Specific epithet mane ki asile? Species or naam to. Instead of using the word species name, we'll be using a word called a specific epithet, right? Okay, aru eta question ahise, Mangifera jikono eta organism or biological name to di dibo and which is the correct way of writing dekhabo. For example, yate dise Mangifera indica. First option is Mangifera indica Carlin. Second option is Mangifera indica lin. Third option is Mangifera indica kintu jihetu printed, it has to be in italics. Etu italics ot nai. So naam tu sai pelai gom pabo lagibo. Jihetu printed e hobo, so first go for italics. Second, name of the scientist or the author at the last, and in abbreviated form linu likhibo pare, elu likhibo pare. But you cannot be writing this, right? Full form likhibo nuara. Okay, next. Very good. I think that's all. Baki hini pariba. Okay, baki tumakor nalage ekni. I think we had an idea about the chapter, no? So, since we have time, we can go to the next chapter. Before going to the next chapter, gotei chapter to ever revise kora. Revise hoy, just go through and see kiba doubts ase niki. Yeah. So, a new chapter, biological classification, that is a second chapter. So, first, what are the things that we will be studying in this chapter? As the name suggests, it is something that's going to talk about the different types of classification systems that we have, right? I think we have said before also that whenever we talk about classification, right, classification system too, it is not something that it has started recently, right? There are so many workers who had started doing classification from an ancient time. So, classification that has been improvised, and ultimately today what we accept is a type of classification that is called as a 5 kingdom classification system, right? Originally, scientists classify all the organisms were based on 2 groups, that is either it will be a plant or it will be a animal. So, since they are divided into 2 groups, we will be talking about something called as a 2 kingdom classification. Right? Tar pisot ami drawbacks kisuman palu kisuman bostu include koribo noarile plant aru animal bhitor, because we have examples of certain organisms that had both the characteristics. They look like plants, they look like animals also. So tahatak tumi plant buliu kobo nwara, animal buliu kobo nwara, since you cannot consider them as such. তুমি তাক প্ল্যান্ট গ্ৰুপতো থব নোৱাৰা, এনিমেল গ্ৰুপতো থব নোৱাৰা। সো বিকজ অফ সার্টেন কন্ডিশনস নো ক্লাসিফিকেশন সিস্টেমটো ইলাবোরেট হৈ গৈ থাকিলে, এন্ড নাও what we have is a 5 kingdom. We also have something called as a 6 kingdom classification. So the first part of the lesson will talk about the classification system. Next to that, each and every classification with their drawbacks. The third point is, since we'll be following the 5 kingdom classification, 5 kingdoms key. Who has given it and what are the 5 kingdoms? We will be starting from the most ancient one, that is Monera, right? And the next part of the lesson talks about detailed description of each kingdom. So 5 kingdoms are gutei pasta except plant kingdom basic details of ami etu chapter 9, because the third chapter itself is plant kingdom, right? So in this chapter ami ki korim je baki kita korim Monera, Protista, and then we will be talking about fungi. As far as animal kingdom and plant kingdom is concerned, beleg chapters. So fungi loke korim. Together with fungi, we have another part that is that will be talking about viruses, mycorrhiza or lichen. This is the content of the chapter, right? So beginning of the chapter, we have to discuss the contribution of certain scientists. The note has already been given to you, so what you will do is we will read it from the note now. Right? As we are understanding from the note, what you do is just mark the important points from there, right? Scientists are contribution kini ami likhibo na lage karon likhise already, right? So just take out that page. Let's see whether we have understood the words or not. So the first part of the lesson talks about certain scientists, and number 1 is Aristotle. When you talk about Aristotle, what are the points that you have to study? Father of key? Father of biology. Is he the father of botany? No. Father of biology hoy, father of geology hoy, kintu father of botany no hoy, right? What he has done is he has given a classification system where he has divided the animals into 2 groups and plants into 3 groups. So question ahe, animals of keita group or divide korse? Duta. On the basis of what? Tat ki likha ase? On the basis of presence or absence of red blood. Right? So plants, animals with red blood, animals without red blood. So so as we have discussed, no, ekdom ancient jumla classification korisile hebilakot okol dutai part asile, either it has to be a plant or it has to be an animal. What did Aristotle say? He has further divided the animal group into 2 more groups, animals with the red blood, animals without the red blood. So what is the question that is asked? Question 2 ahe, that on the basis of presence or absence of red blood, who has forwarded the classification? Aristotle. So what's the most important word? Red blood, right? Next, plants of keta category divide korise 3ta: herbs, shrubs and trees. As far as herbs, shrubs and trees are concerned, I think we have an idea what is a herb, what is a shrub and what is a tree, right? Herb, shrub, trees. Any example? Tree example to are okay, any tree, mango tree and neem tree, right? Herb or shrub or the example? Rose is the most common example that we talk about, right? Okon bushy nisa, right? Smaller than a tree. What about a herb?
Basil?
Yeah, basil actually it could be considered as a shrub also sometimes, right? Best example could be the one that's commonly available, spinach. Shak kiman ase no, eblako ki hoy very small na, tatok ami ki ko herbs ko. Okay, so that is all about Aristotle. Next we have to talk about Theophrastus, father of botany, important point, right? He has written certain books, and out of the 3 books I think it has already been marked Historia Plantarum বুলি wordটো underline কৰা আছে ন so that is considered as the first book of botany question কেতিয়াবা আহে who is the author of Historia Plantarum কোনে লিখিছিলে Historia Plantarum Theophrastus লিখিছিলে right on the basis of lifespan Theophrastus আৰু তিনটা word দিছিলে কি দিছিলে annual biennial and perennial so who has proposed the terms annual biennial and perennial Theophrastus what do you understand by the term annual biennial and perennial Theophrastus or কি point জানিবা father of botany এখন book লিখিছিলে Historia বহুত books লিখিছিলে কিন্তু Historia Plantarum most important third the words annual biennial perennial কোনে দিছিলে Theophrastus দিছে what do you understand by those words annual মানে কি biennial মানে কি আৰু perennial মানে কি plants with 1 year as a lifespan annual right এবছৰ জীয়াই থাকে মাত্ৰ that is annual 2 years জীয়াই থাকে that's biennial more than 2 years obviously it will be called as a perennial right next eta sturdy point আছে no both Theophrastus and Aristotle were কি লিখা আছে Greek political philosophers so question has been asked about তাহাত scientists আছিল নে philosophers আছিল philosophers second point is তাহাতৰ nationality report Greek আছিল নে French আছিল নে British আছিল নে etc so Greek is important philosophers is important right okay next scientist number 3 Carolus Linnaeus point kita পঢ়িছোৱা who is considered as the father of taxonomy Carolus Linnaeus binomial nomenclature কোনে দিছিলে Carolus Linnaeus right father of animal taxonomy father of plant taxonomy word today Carolus Linnaeus right he has written how many books 5 books out of the 5 books except number 1 all 4 are important right first khonor upor question aha nai kintu baki khonor upor question ahise kenuka dhoroner question ahise first who has written that book second what is the content of the book book khonot ki ase bracketor bhitor likha ase swa Philosophia Botanica talks about key principles of nomenclature. Species Plantarum talks about scientific names of plants. Species Plantarum we have already discussed, right? Genera Plantarum talks about the detailed description of the plant kingdom. So plants or kekhon book asile? Dukhon. Species Plantarum aru Genera Plantarum species Plantarum or ki asile names of the plants genera Plantarum or ki asile description of the plants just read the information that is given in the bracket understood so book ikhonor naam aru book ikhonot ki ase right so when we are talking about plants are naam ekhon bookot ase plant dalor description ekhon beleg bookot ase right next talking about animals we have one book that is called as Systema Naturae ki ase names of animals description of animals right duita kihor animals ore ase together with that they have something for plants also yes or no what outline classification of plants is the point understood when we are talking about plants or naam ekhon beleg bookot ase description ekhon beleg bookot ase kintu animals or naam aru description ekekhon bookote ase right second point that is important is whenever we talk about Systema Naturae jihetu pori ahi asu we understand or we might think as if this is a book that is concerned only with animals kintu hoy janu no hoy it talks about plants also is the point here outline classification mane the type of classification that was given at that time right whole next publication date we have already discussed duta date lage 1753 aru 1758 first May ne first August not important right next when we talk about Carolus Linnaeus e kenuka dhoroner classification disile two kingdom classification right read the note right according to the two kingdom classification organisms were divided into how many kingdoms two kingdoms what were the two kingdoms animals by animalia aru plants হয় নহয় so careless lineage e ki disile two kingdom classification what are the two kingdoms animalia aru plantae plantae next ki likhise he divided the two kingdoms into plantae and animalia further kak classify korise plantae did he say anything about animals no what he has given he has divided the plants under 24 yes on the basis of ki on the basis of reproductive characters right point kita bhalke saba careless lineage se duta kingdom classification two kingdom classification he did not say anything about animals he said about plants the entire plants that were present were divided into how many groups 24 groups on the basis of what on the basis of reproductive characters 24 jimanbor plants asile 24 groups asile and out of this 24 again he has divided into two groups 23 eta or 1 eta hoy noy so 23 on the basis of ki tolot ki was likha ase flowering or bracketot কি লিখা আছে is it distinct spelling to distinct hoise nai bracket dia nai okay ঠিক আছে বাৰু ঠিক আছে on the basis of flowering aru non flowering ঠিক আছে okay we'll talk about that only মানে কি what we understood from this part jiman plants asile gutei plants bilakor flowers asil niki nai 23 groups of flowers asile out of this 24 groups eta group of flower nasile jun bilak flowers asile tahator ako specific naam kisuman dise yes or no ekita words clear hoise notot monoandria diandria triandria etc aru non flowering out ki disile non andria right aru bracketot ki ase cryptogamy likha nai cryptogonia okay so this is the classification that he has given so jetia plants or upor classify korise ei je 24 groups dise ako je divide korise on the basis of ki flowers ase ne flowers nai right 23 groups or ki asle flowers asile and they were named as such right আর junto flower nai tak ami ki korisu non andria talking about this andria is a short form of androecium right whenever we talk about a flower so flowering যদি plants hoy obviously tat ki thakibo flower buli kole what you understand what is a flower condensed reproductive shoot right eta flower ot gute parts bur eke ne beleg I think you have heard about the words called as sepals petals stamens and carpels right so sepals petals okay understood that green part and generally the colorful part right stamens are carpels stamen belongs to a group called as ki androecium right carpels belong to a group that is called as gynoecium so in a flower what you have is a male reproductive part and you have the female reproductive part also right so male reproductive part to kami ki boli kom androecium female reproductive part to kami ki boli kom gynoecium right so if you are talking about this as a flower right flower etu ki boli kom sepals etu ki kom petals this one would be called as stamen and this one would be called as carpel or it would be called as pistil right So carpel adult carpel, no? This is the carpel. It has how many parts? Stigma, style, ovary, right? If you are talking about this as a stamen, something like this, you have filament. Understood? So eta flower of stamen aru carpel not necessarily single thakibo. Kisuman single thake, kisuman besi thake, right? So stamen is an individual member of a group called as androecium. Carpel or pistil is an individual member of a group called as gynoecium. So what is stamen? The male part or female part? Male part. Carpel dal female part. So just to understand this word, andry has come from the word androecium. Androecium mane the male part of the plant. Androecium ki hoy eta group or individual member of ki boli ko stamen, right? So non-flowering or word to ki likhise non-andria mane tat ki na thake androecium e na thake. Is the point clear? Another word that we come across is called as cryptogonia. Ebilak words ako plant kingdom of paporim. Whenever we talk about plants, there are two words that we come across. One is called as phanerogams and the other is called as cryptogams. What is a phanerogam? A flowering plant is called as a phanerogam. A non-flowering plant is called as a cryptogam. So cryptogonia, we understood, we are talking about a non-flowering plant. Is the point clear? So Linnaeus ki korisile, two kingdom classification disile. What he has done, he has divided the plant kingdom or the entire group of plants into two groups, 24 flowering, 23 flowering, 1 non-flowering, on the basis of key, on the basis of reproductive structures. On the basis of reproductive structures boli keneke gom pala, karon a word to ase no, andria ase, so andria talks about androecium. Androecium is nothing but the reproductive structure. Clear? Okay. Linnaeus or kiba problem ase niki swa Linnaeus part 2. So we have talked about Aristotle, we have talked about Theophrastus and Carolus Linnaeus. All clear? Next, the next scientist, George Bentham and Joseph Dalton Hooker. So ihodok short format Bentham and Hooker boli koy. There is no need of reading the entire name. Okay. So we will be talking about Bentham and Hooker, obviously two different workers. Right? So they were related to ki Royal Botanical Garden. Botanical Garden jano no? Botanical Gardens ki hoy? It's a mean of conservation. Zoological park ki hoy? It's a means of conservation. When we talk about conservation, we come across two words. One is called as in situ conservation and eta ki bole ex situ conservation. Conservation mane ki tumi kabak preserve kora, right? Preservation ami keneke koribo pare. Edal plant ok preserve koribo bisarisa. You have two ways. Jote plant dal hoise tate preserve koribo para or hedal loi goi pele tumi eta beleg bhal jegat preserve koribo para. Are you understanding the point? Zoological park hog, botanical garden hog, places of preservation or conservation, right? So when we are talking about conservation, we come across two words, in situ conservation ne ex situ. Question ahise lagote, the botanical garden is an example of in situ conservation ne ex situ. In situ ne ex situ, what is the difference? Jedi jote hoise tate conserve koriso in situ. Uthai ni pelai belegot korisa, that is ex situ. Botanical garden or ki koru? Ex situ. Sobor pra ani pelai eta jegat thau. Zoological parks ba zoo ki koru? Sobor animals bor ani pelai thau. Ani pelai thau, that's what is called as ex situ, right? So Bentham and Hooker ki kor logot related asile. We have so many botanical gardens in the world. One of the very important and biggest botanical garden is the Royal Botanical Garden. So they worked in the Royal Botanical Garden as what? As a curator. Botanical gardens are bahut post ase. Different categories of persons working in different fields. They were called as curator. Who is a curator? Anyone who does a research work in a botanical garden is called as a curator. So তেওঁলোকে কি কৰিছে? Research কৰিছিলে তাতে, right? They had proposed the biggest and natural classification of spermatophytes. আমি কি পঢ়ি আছো ক্লাসিফিকেশন পঢ়ি আছো কোনবিলাক সায়েন্টিস্টে কি ক্লাসিফিকেশন দিছিলে সো তেওঁলোকে কি হক what did they classify spermatophytes right spermatophytes phytes word to thakile to obviously plants e hobo no right plants spermatophytes mane sperm bearing plants instead of using the word sperm we are talking about the word ki hoy seed bearing plants right so jeneke olop agote duta word palu no cryptogam aru phanerogam the another word that we come across is spermatophytes plant kingdom ot jiman bilak plants ase gutei plants or seeds ase niki plants boli kole ekin pake most probably class 9 10 or okon porisa talking about the different categories of plants boli kole ki plants ase algae ase bryophytes ase pteridophytes ase right so ako ekhini portion ami next chapter to porim when we talk about plants tate keita thake pasta category thake algae bryophytes pteridophytes gymnosperms and angiosperms right so what's a primitive plant ki algae so what's a advanced plants angiosperms eta yare bhitor kuntu dekhisa give me an example of a bryophyte okay we'll start with algae have you seen algae yes any example of algae forget the algae I mean example specifically you might not remember as of now right spirogyra no blue green algae is not a proper algae it belongs to monera we'll be talking about that later algae dhora spirogyra volvox ebla ki hoy algae aru algae whenever you have studied about algae how big the plant is bahut ukho niki ketiao noy angiosperm mango tree nisna niki noy right dekhisa na algae heloi boli juntu ami ko okhomiyat matit thake na lagi right so hebilak plants or seeds dekhisa niki nai rekha okay coming to the next group that is bryophytes are an example moss sanane walls damp walls of the keteba velvet type of one green color smooth bostu thake no that plant is called as a moss right so moss or seeds na thake talking about pteridophytes are an example kwa for instance dhekia dekhisa no dhekia ami jontu dhekia khau he dhekia belongs to which group pteridophytes tahator guti thake niki na thake so what we can conclude je gute plant kingdom ot gute bilak plants or seeds na thake seed bearing plants kun bilak angiosperms so obviously mango seed ase aru kar gymnosperms also right so spermatophytes boli kole so Bentham and Hooker kak classify korisile spermatophytes of classify korise spermatophytes means what he has talked about gymnosperms and angiosperms right seed bearing plants in nature ki hoy gymnosperms and angiosperms next what is the drawback of his classification keu ki korisile soson spermatophytes kini keita group ot divide korise spermatophytes of kimanta class of group divide korise tinta what were the three dicots gymnosperms monocots right okay talking about dicots and monocots so am olokore ki kolu jetia spermatophytes sake tetia ami ki poribo lage gymnosperms poribo lage aru angiosperms poribo lage angiosperm is a group angiosperms again divided into dicots monocots right plant kingdom olop agote classification to keneke likhesilo first ki likhesilo algae tapsot ki likhiso bryophytes tapsot pteridophytes then we have gymnosperms then we have angiosperms right A2 sequence of the likhiso ulta pulta ke kyo likha nai the question is why are we writing it in this sequence we could have written bryophytes before prior to algae or we could have written angiosperms prior to bryophytes but since we are maintaining this sequence it talks about evolution right so which one is the most primitive plant algae which one is the most advanced plant angiosperms of group keta duta tar bidot sobotse advanced kuntu juntu last thought thakibo obviously monocots right so this is the sequence that we see Etia coming back to this classification, what did Bentham and Hooker do? Spermatophytes classify korisile. Classify keneke korisile? Tinta groupot. Sequence to ki asile? Dicots asile, gymnosperms asile, monocots asile. Is this sequence correct? Etu sequence yar nisna niki? Hobo ki lagisile? Gymnosperms, dicot and monocot, right? So Bentham and Hooker, he has proposed a classification. Car classification, spermatophytes. Spermatophytes ki hoy? Seed bearing plants. Kiman groupot divide korise? Tinta groupot. Is Bentham and Hooker's classification accepted? No. Why is it not accepted? Because of the arrangement. Because it did not talk about proper evolution, right? What would have been the correct method? Gymnosperms, dicots and monocots. Now read the paragraph and see whether you have understood or not. So here most ancient or primitive plants algae and most advanced plants monocots, right, of angiosperms. Etia gute bostu khini pori soa. Read the paragraph. Dicots are monopetally, polypetally, these are the words ami morphology porhim yat nalage imanke, right? Tothapi moi likhi thoi disu bhitor. So Bentham and Hooker jehon classification dise, hey classification system khonor merit to ase, demerit to ase. Demerit to gom palu. It did not speak properly about evolution. Merit ki likha ase no? So out of all the points that we have written, what is the biggest merit or greatest merit? This classification is based on floral characters. Adult plant or flower to cypher classify korisile. Why are we talking about flower? Because we are talking about seeds. Seeds thakibo, seeds jedi hoy tetale ফুল লাগিব না লাগে ফুল না থাকাকে seeds hobo niki algae flower ase niki nai seeds নাই bryophytes of flower ase niki nai seeds nai angiosperms of flowers ase flowers of seeds ase. I think you all know after fertilization janu no, male gamete female gamete fuse together forms what? Zygote forms the embryo, right? When we are talking about fertilization, after fertilization kisman events hoy no, kiba kibi bostu kiba hole convert hoy jay. Zygote converts into ki embryo, right? Next aru ki formation hoy? Seed formation, embryo pra seedling to hobo. Aru ki fertilization or pisot ki hoy? Baby plant dal form kore. Aru what about fruit and seed? Ovary gets converted into fruit, right? Ovule gets converted into seed. Fertilization of episode, we will see embryo formation, we will see endosperm formation, we will see the fruit formation, we will see the seed formation, right? So jihetu teo seedor kotha koisile, so obviously he has talked about plants that has flowers, right? So a classification was based on the flower of a plant. When we talk about classification, adult plant or classification korisa, you can study the morphological features, you can study the leaves, you can study the flower, you can study the branches. Jikono bostu eta pori pelai tumi classify koribo pora. Dukhon classification ase, suppose ejon manue plant dalor leaf sai pelai classify korise ar ejon manue plant dalor flower sai pelai classify korise. Which one would be more authentic? Is obviously the one who has read the flower. Why? Because the flower is a static character. Adult planter aji 10ta leaf ase kali 15ta hobo pare. As it grows by, the number of leaves will keep on increasing. But if you are talking about the flower to jodi 5ta petal ase, hi hoday 5tai thakibo. Flower to jodi adult stamen ase, hi hoday adult stamen e hobo. Is the point clear? So flower study korile, that is considered as a static character, and so the classification becomes easier. So that is the merit of the classification. So Bentham and Hooker will just stop the class here. Bentham and Hooker a key classification is natural, right? He has talked about spermatophytes divided into three groups. What is the merit? What is the demerit? The demerit is this one. Merit is he has studied the flower, right? That's all. For the next class, what you do is baki kisam scientist or okoman porhi aiba so that we can go faster.